go to the select menu and go down to subject. If you've obviously got a very, very strong, obviously black cat there, subject, just select that. But you also notice some shadow here. It does quite a good job of avoiding most of the shadow, but it does occasionally, and I've run it a few times, make a mistake where it's over here, you can see an error, but sometimes it also, I found, it selects the wrong area. So what you can also do is, personally, I always just quickly go to over here, to the Lasso tool in the tools panel, select that, and then also I go for, if I want to remove or obviously add, I go for this option here, which is the subtract from selection. And what I can do, if I can see some selection that I don't really like, I think that's wrong, I can subtract and you can see something there. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. So let's just quickly zoom in, just a little bit, and now use the Lasso tool and just select around this. Now I'm not going to be super accurate, but obviously you don't want it to be really terrible, the selection, but you can subtract very quickly and you can see another error there. That's another part there's a few little bits. There's another bit I can just about make out just around the ear, though that could be fluff around the ear, I think. You can see that there. What you can also do, you can see another bit of error there. So I'm just going to select around that bit. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because at the end of the day, I'm going to blur it anyway. So, but I just wanted to cut it back a bit so it's not so obvious. And again, you can always add as well. So there's a bit, say you've got here, you think, you know what, I want to maybe add that bit. You can use add instead. And again, down here, it's actually quite tricky, to be honest, to see with this cat, whether that's the foot or whether that's, I think it's the foot. It could be, maybe not. But so what you can do, you can always add that in if you want to. So I just think, you know what, I just decide that is actually part of the foot. I think it goes around a bit like that. So you can just quickly add it there. So you can just create that area there. And I think other than that, I think, now, is that part of the, it's very tricky to tell, really. Obviously, I took this photo a long time ago, no idea where the shadow starts there. So I'm quite happy with that now. I mean, I think you could probably work it a little bit more. There's a little bit there maybe. So now once you've got that, and I'm going to zoom out again. So I'm just going to quickly come out. I'm just going to put it about there. So you can see the cat. Well, you could, if you want to, you could use some feather. You could go to select menu and down to modify and feather if you just want to add a bit of edge. Personally, I don't like to do that. I think that just looks artificial. But what you can do is you can now invert the selection. And that's what I do, PC or Mac. You can do this in Photoshop. Select and inverse selection, because I don't want to blur the cat. Though I could, but I want that to be the centre of attention. So I'm just going to blur this outer part. Now you could use a number of blurs. There's quite a few blurs you can go for. And I'm just going to go maybe for filter. And you can go down to blur, Gaussian blur. But you could try some of those. Personally, I don't think that they look really great with the cat. My favourite to create a really slightly unusual blur is this one, which is blur gallery. So go to blur gallery and pass blur. This should be available, but you may not have that depending on your system. So if you haven't got it, obviously go for the other blurs. So that's just the thing. So sometimes it can be disabled. So pass blur. And I'm going to go with pass blur, and you can see now the effect there, and it's updating. And you can see this line, this blue line. Well, I don't want that across like that, because you can see the effect is going left to right. Well, I don't want that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to move it. And I'm just going to blur it around the edge of the character, the cat in this case, obviously. But you can add additional ones as well. I'm just going to add another one, and I'm going to make it go all the way around this cat. I mean, obviously you could make it very carefully. I'm just doing it very loosely. Now you can see this. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do other than maybe use a clone just to get rid of that line through there. You could sort of try and remove it. Quite easy, I would have thought. But that's a possible. There, I just go there, and you can see as you go around, you can follow the design of the cat. And then, of course, then you can blur it as much as you want. And it says updated. Press escape just to remove that. And now what you can see is the blurs following thing. And you can change the speed. The cat itself is untouched. That's what I want. I want the cat to be really sharp. So you can change the speed, and I'm going to go for that. Obviously, it takes a bit more time to process again, but you can now see it's flowing around that cat. Really drives the attention to that cat. And once you've done that, of course, you can look at it and quickly think, yeah, that looks right. You can move things if you want. You can move any of these points, but you can click OK. You could also add other effects if you want to do that, but I'm just going to say that's enough for there. Now, you might find, and this is the thing when you look at this, when you've blurred it, you quite often see an error. And you can always go back and just again use the lasso just to add in an area or remove an area. Quite often I fine tune it because it just doesn't look right. And it's something you spot later. You might think, oh, you know what? That leg there isn't a leg. It's a shadow. It looks really obvious as a shadow, which you don't often see when you look at a picture. Sometimes you think, you know, is it a shadow or not? Like that bit could be. However, once you're happy with that, I'm going to deselect it, because what I want to now do is my usual thing that I normally finish on, and that's go to the blur tool. Now I set it to 100%, and of course you've got a whole range of different selections of brushes you can go and, but what I do, I just like to round the edge, just so it just smudges it a little bit or blurs it. You could use other tools, of course, but just go around that edge, and I'm just doing it very quickly. And again, you can see now that you might think, you know what, even that tail looks a bit odd, slightly darker than it should be. But you can just give it a little bit of a blur just so it doesn't look so, because it does look artificial, I think, if you've got it really, really sharp. And obviously, if you're printing this and things, you might want to rework it even more, take more time to really, but I like to just go around the edge and just give it a bit of a, you know, and then again, let's say if you see an error, you think, oh, you know what, I can just see there some imperfection. It's not good. You might want to use a bit of clone just to go through that, or maybe go back again and just select that area. So you can just, and that bit looks a bit artificial, that dark there. And again, you may want to select it, cut away a bit more using the lasso tool at that bit. But you can always do it afterwards. It takes a fraction of a second just to quickly go back, and because you can quite often see errors a bit more clearly once it's blurred than when it's just, you know, you've got the raw image, I think. And then you've got your cat there. And then, of course, you can come out there and you can zoom in, and I'm just going to go there, and you can see the cat, and you can look at it and think, yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Nicely focused attention, you've got it swirling around. And, of course, you could create all kinds of different blurred swirling. You don't have to follow this. Maybe you've got some other object there. You might want to follow that as well. Up to you to create different effects using that. But that's what I think is quite a nice way of creating a unique, unusual sort of very centre focus and attention. Please put in the comments below if you like this approach, or if you don't, you prefer to use maybe a Gaussian blur. What blurs do you use? Because, I mean, I'm always interested, which do you prefer? I mean, shape blur is a great one. I think shape, you could create a shape from this. So you could quickly use that selection, create a shape. With that shape, you can then use that in the shape blur. Obviously, select the outer area and blur that. Another option, of course, now, once you've got, now I'm just going to go filters and neural filters, and there's a lovely depth blur there, which you could, of course, use with the selections, etc. as well. Well, I hope you found this of interest. Thank you much.